Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Steven Banerjee with us. He is a serial entrepreneur and the founder and CEO at NextNet. So I'm excited to talk biotech, AI, software, everything in between today. That's going to be fun. Steven, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us about NextNet?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. So my name is Steven Banerjee, founder and CEO of NextNet. I'm based here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was trained as an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and I spent almost a decade working at the intersection of, semiconductor physics, kind of a mouthful, and biology that kind of led to the foundation of my first company, a company which is now a fast-growing biotech platform company called Mekonos. So the way I explain to people is like imagine Nvidia for biotech. It's developing some pretty cutting edge chip technology to enable scale this new class of personalized medicines like cell and gene therapies and other techniques in synthetic biology. And in early 2021, I founded NextNet. Really, the idea was that which was born out of my personal frustration, which is you have, and in the field of biotech and pharma, and particularly kind of more broadly speaking, biomedicine, you have biomedical knowledge that exists in bits and pieces across numerous multimodal data silos, right? That includes from text that exists in the form of tens of millions of scientific literature, abstracts, patents, clinical trial records, grant information, other gene protein databases, pathways, disease, drug compound, expression atlases, and so forth. And the generational challenge has been to how do you kind of bring all of that, all of this data, speak with each other. They don't speak, they don't have a shared language. And what we have been spending the last more than 2.5 years now is to really kind of organize, integrate, contextualize, cross-reference all that kind of scattered knowledge, if you will, across all these silos, a lot of which are available in the public domain, some of which are in the, that are more proprietary, and really kind of make all of that information accessible to your average scientist and researcher that are really at the cutting edge of drug discovery and development, right? So that's what we do at NextNet, and we have built some pretty cutting edge software stack and natural language AI, generative AI pipelines that allows us to really kind of go after this massive corpus of very multimodal information and kind of bring that all together and make all of that accessible to folks.
Right. And you started at Mekonos. So how is that as a background? What insights did you get from that? And how are you bringing that to NextNet nowadays?
Yeah, that's a good question, Charles. So, the Mekonos was purely it's a very different kind of business. It's more of a kind of a classic biotech platform company that are developing tools to, it's more hardware than software. NextNet is more software. I would say NextNet is really kind of biotech enterprise software in a domain. But really a lot of this was interacting with a lot of customers and partners when I was founding and building my first company. And one of the frustrations that I heard from a lot of folks in the industry is that, and this is particularly very relevant in the cell and gene therapy industry, where people are generating enormous amount of information, right? Information coming out of gene editing experiments, single cell RNA sequencing experiments, coming out of optical microscope instrumentations and so forth. And how do you kind of bring a lot of that information together so that you can make more informed decisions? And this is, a lot of this is really, I'm talking about this is back from 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019. And you have the modern renaissance in natural language AI, generative AI that we see with ChatGPT and DALL-E was really kind of just beginning to take shape. And that was a perfect opportunity to really kind of marry advancements in what you call nowadays called these large language models that exist in a modern form, but before they became more culturally relevant, to kind of marry those kind of techniques with this enormous amount of data out there, multimodal data, and the knowledge that's embedded within all of the data. So that was a perfect use case, right? And so NextNet was really kind of just a very historically relevant timing, if you will, and really also being in the right place, because the Bay Area is where it's a lot of this advancements in technology and AI and so forth happening, and also it's a major biotech hub. So it was a very natural progression, and I felt like this is a perfect timing to be able to start a company in this domain.
Right. And for example, you've been at this one for a couple of years now. How has the priorities changed from year one? You've got backed, obviously, back in these days. VS today, is it still growth mode with this current macro environment? What are you seeing that is helping and not helping the company at this moment? Is the capital still there? Are the clients still coming in great numbers? What are your top priorities this year?
Yeah, so we are definitely. I mean, a lot of biotech companies that I was speaking with, we were communicating with back in 2020, as an example, before I even founded the company, or early 2021, or they don't exist anymore because of the changes in the macroeconomic market environment. But at the end of the day, it's a massive generational problem. And the problem is a lot of these biotech pharma companies are generating enormous amount of data because of the advancements in biomedicine. I think ChatGPT and DALI and all this revolution that's happening in AI is very cultural. It's very visible to the public, but I would say that there's equally, if not more, revolutionary things happening in biology, in aspect of regenerative medicine and cell and gene therapies and synthetic biology techniques and gene editing and so forth, which is not really more visible to the public, but that has allowed the generation of enormous amount of very heterogeneous multimodal data. And one of the problems in biology is that, and this applies to other industries as well, but particularly in this industry, data has a big white noise problem, right? Biology and medicine is very context dependent, so a lot of the data exists without context, right? So how do you make a lot of that? How do you contextualize a lot of this internal private proprietary behind the firewall data that these companies are generating? So there is definitely a lot of demand for that, and one of our goals is that to be able to help these companies interface with the external world, i.e. the knowledge that's there in the public domain, but mostly inaccessible because they're hiding in silos and behind layers of coding. You have to master a lot of, master like myriads of R libraries and Python packages and, SQL, SparkQL, programming languages and so forth, which is really not in a wheelhouse of an average biologist or an average scientist. So there's a lot of interest because this is just a massive problem in the industry. In terms of the, in terms of the how the, our vision has changed, I think we have stayed true to, the thesis of why the company was founded, which is to really organize and integrate the world's biomedical knowledge and make all that accessible so that your average scientist can query the totality of knowledge out there, ask and answer their mission critical questions around, let's say, around target discovery or understanding disease biology or mechanisms of action, so what have you. So that thing hasn't changed. It's just, I would say, it has accelerated. We have accelerated the rate at which we have been extracting knowledge from across all these very multimodal data silos that exist both in the public and also now in the more proprietary domain.
What's your moonshot with NextNet? Like, how far are we from testing in silico at mass and finding potential cures to tough diseases we've been trying to fix for 3 decades or plus, like cancer?
Yeah, so one of the things, and one of the ways that we have changed as a company, to your previous question before I come to address this one, is we have taken a stance that we would remain as a software, purely as a software company. We're not developing any drugs, and our goal is to really kind of bring um, kind of the tech, Silicon Valley tech type software user interface, user experience to this very legacy industry that we feel has historically lagged behind in terms of its tech stack and the user experience, and kind of being able to have the technology transformation behind the tech industry. But I would say at least 10, if not 15, or like 20 years. So we exist as a purely as a software company. Um, our role that we see in this industry is to really augment the intelligence of the domain experts, the scientists, the researchers. We are not doing any in silico testing. We're not developing drugs. But what we're doing is that we're basically leveraging this modern, the modern marvels of natural language generative AI with the modern marvels of biology and medicine, a lot of the data generating from all this multimodal, all these different techniques, and that and really kind of mining for associations between public and proprietary databases, and really make all of that accessible to the scientists and researchers that are actually developing the new drugs, right? So we're not doing any of that. But imagine NextNet as more, the NextNet cloud or the NextNet platform, more like as a co-pilot, or let's say as a decision-making tool, or a decision-making infrastructure, if you want to go even further beyond that. So our goal is to really impact. That's why we have chosen the drug discovery and development, because most of the drugs fail. And just to give you some facts here, 30 years ago, I think, if I remember the numbers correctly, in today's dollar value, I took an average of $300 million to bring a drug to market. Today, it takes around roughly $2.4 billion. That's a number I heard last. And the reason for that is because it's not because the clinical trials cost that much. It's because most of the drugs actually fail. And the drugs, as they progress from the early stage, in the preclinical phase across every steps of the pipeline. And so what has happened is that a lot in the funnel, where a lot of the compounds or the drugs kind of enter, has become progressive larger, and the end of the funnel has become progressively smaller. So you have more and more drugs fail, and there is a massive liability for that. Even when you enter clinical trials, 50% of the drugs, I think, that enter phase 1 trials are decommissioned, and then 50% of drugs that enter phase 2 trials are further retired as well. So our goal is to really help this pharma biotech companies to be able to make better decisions early on in the process, in that early stage discovery and development process. And the way we're doing that is by giving them access to the totality of the knowledge out there, and by building a very intuitive, immersive interface to be able to do that. And so it's an ongoing process. We are planning to raise some pretty big round of financing and so forth as well, to be able to grow this grow this business. But we exist purely as a software company, and I think our goal is to really impact the cost of failure, to reduce that, and also the productivity, so that drugs, there are so that the dollar that is allocated in the early stage can be more effectively, those financial resources can be more effectively allocated. And one of the other reasons as well is, a lot of the drugs fail is because they're choosing the wrong target in the wrong disease, in the wrong patient population. So if we can help folks choose the right target in the right disease, in the right patient population, and there are a variety of use cases in that, I think that then we can potentially make a big impact, a big dent in this industry.
And to come back to your question, how far are we from like eliminating big disease, or what percentage of big 5 disease can we eliminate in the next 10 years, let's say?
It will be pure speculation, so I don't really have any specific numbers. One thing I can tell you is that, historically speaking, diseases have traditionally been diagnosed by its symptoms and its location in the body, not by the underlying molecular mechanisms or pathways or biological processes. You probably have heard about gene therapies and cell therapies that are more like bringing a lot of more precision medicine much more targeted therapeutics. And so identifying targets and discovering connections with pathways early on in the disease progression can help intervene at the causal stage rather than at the symptomatic stage. So that is already radically changing. You know, you already have this kind of, I think there are more than 1,000 cell gene therapy trials, and this new modality of like therapeutics, kind of a transformation from how historically the pharma industry has worked, which is chemically synthesizing molecules, your chemical matter versus more, biological matter. So I don't really have any specific numbers on top of my head in terms of what percentage of disease will be treated or cured, but you're already looking at, very personalized medicine like gene edited based therapies are already actually having massive impact, in some cases even cures on in a lot of rare genetic diseases that were previously incurable or untreatable.
So there's 3 months remaining to this year. What's your next big play? Is it funding? Is it growth?
Yeah, so we are in the process of moving our partnership motion. We are working with multiple different and in the process of getting new partners, and also, of course, our goal is to we'll be raising some growth capital to kind of grow the business. So that's basically our plan over the next in the next coming months.
Well, congrats on everything. Where can people find out more about you, Steven?
You can just go to our website, www.nextnetinc.com. Also, please visit us on our LinkedIn, also on Twitter, which is at NextNet Inc., our Twitter handle. And we also have a YouTube channel as well. You can just Google NextNet Inc., and you can find a lot of information about us. So
there you go. And I am Charles Cormier, your host, CEO of founderwisdompodcast.com.